Tell us a little bit about your background.
Thank you, and good morning. I'm happy for the interview. My personal background is in information technology, starting from the earliest days as a computer programmer and operator, then advanced through certain management positions, always with information technology in mind, in private sector and in public sector. Branched into entrepreneurial work, working for a venture company, and as a result of that, got into work in support of people who were blind.
Tell us about how you came to develop this particular application.
The developer in this product is my business partner. His name is Ilkka Pritama, and he's based in Helsinki, Finland. I met Ilkka about 3 years ago, and we recognized in each other certain business qualities and views of how we support people who are blind in the workplace, a common ground. And we decided that we should do something together. The something together became partnering in the company called MIPSoft, best known for our product called BlindSquare.
Now, tell us about BlindSquare.
Oh, happy to do that. BlindSquare is an iOS-based app. It's the most used and most recognized app for persons who are blind, partially sighted, or deafblind. And I stress deafblind because that's one of the many unique attributes of BlindSquare that we leave no one behind. The application is used for waypoint navigation, taking the person from point A to point B. Whether point A to point B is a journey from home to work, from home to play, or even if that journey is not live, that they're not moving physically from point to point, but simulating the future travel. And that's a significant feature as well, because our clients who sometimes might be fearful about going into new places if they've moved locations or if they're going to a destination they hadn't experienced before, they can, with BlindSquare, do that journey completely from the comfort of their couch, know in advance what to expect on the journey, know in advance what to expect on arrival.
Does the application interface with indoor GPS systems?
It does. One of the concerns for people who are traveling, when outdoors they have benefit of GPS, so satellite imagery to identify where you are in the world, but when transitioning indoors and you lose sight of the sky, that information is lost. We replace that in a couple of ways. One, and for the last 3 years almost, and represented by 500 buildings where we have presence, we replace that with beacons. But the new direction is to bring the signaling for GPS indoors, and we are involved with 2 projects in that regard right now with tremendous success. I can't give you details on that because it's pending announcement, but it is a wonderful evolution beyond beacons.
There are a number of different beacon technologies out there, and interfacing with both of them or all of them, is that something that your application achieves, or do you choose a particular beacon technology?
So concerning beacon technology, there's really 2 divisions. One and is defined as protocols. The first is the iBeacon protocol. It's used by iOS devices, and the other is the Eddystone protocol, used by Android devices typically. The products that we use are varied. We do have a darling that we like to work with. The company's called Contact.io, and they're based in Poland. But their beacons, one of the features is that they will simultaneously advertise or signal out both in iBeacon and or Eddystone protocol. So in the event that the beacon has to be used by one platform or another, a single beacon can do both. However, we use many products. In some cases, our clients have a beacon infrastructure already, or they may have a country preference to buy Australian if you're in Australia and the like. And to us, that's fine as long as the product they're using is stable, providing good signaling, and ready for use. To our product, we're ready now.
So how are you distributing this particular application?
So the application itself is iPhone-based, so through the Apple Store. In support of any environments that we create where GPS signaling is not available, we do that through a network of consultants who have field expertise as well as geographic presence. In our case, BlindSquare is used in 160 countries, so it wouldn't be reasonable to expect that we're going to fly to any of the 160 countries to finish a physical environment for an indoors. We look to consultants, and we have consultants throughout the world that help in that regard.
So tell us about some of the special features that make BlindSquare different and preferential.
We like our community to define the term preferential. They'll make the choice. Ultimately, we recognize them as being the smart people. One of the features that we bring is the ability to travel seamlessly. So if you're using BlindSquare to go from home to this location, for example, and then come in the front door, you don't have to say, well, what is the application used to support indoor navigation at this facility? If it's a BlindSquare enabled environment, they just continue. And it happens without the need for transition. In the place where other products might be used, we have arrangements and the ability to sense what product is used in the given location. And if it's not BlindSquare, that's fine. We transition to that other product seamlessly, allowing the person who's blind traveling to just simply carry on. And then when they exit the building and go outside, then BlindSquare again wakes up and the journey continues.
What application version are you currently on, and tell us about perhaps the next version?
Oh goodness, so BlindSquare, since its generation, it's about 5.5 years old. It's a mature product now. We've had about almost 160 upgrades to that. Those upgrades are not led by our own inventiveness alone, but by listening very carefully to the community. We would like it if it would do this, or wouldn't it be nice if it would do that? And that's our response to it. So we're currently at version 6.1 dot something. But what's new and interesting, in fact, that was demonstrated here yesterday as part of my presentation, and that's that what we do that is beyond simply moving a person from A to B or beyond identifying where they are, and that's all the secondary information around travel that is necessary. A couple examples. Leaving your house to go to a workplace, you may travel by bus. Wouldn't it be nice to know where that bus stop is? Well, we can identify that based on GPS information. But beyond that, wouldn't it be nice to know what routes are being serviced at that bus stop? Because sometimes there are multiple, sometimes even with multiple carriers. Maybe an intercity bus system and maybe an intracity bus system. It would be good to know about that. Beyond that, it would be nice to know what's the next bus arriving. Bus number 1, 2, 3, 4 is due in 3 minutes. To gather that information, we interface with transit systems in the location, whether it's a city, a town, or an area. Another example that we demonstrated yesterday was when you're traveling indoors, it's nice to say, I want to go to the second floor, room 1, 2, 3, 4, but the only way that I can get there is by using an elevator. An elevator is a bit of a curse for persons who are blind for a number of reasons. Number one, you need to be able to find the elevator call button. And you need to be able to discern, is it going up or is it going down? That's pretty easy once you find it. But when the elevator door opens, you need to know that you're in the right elevator, not an express elevator that might take you to floor 22 where your intention is floor 2. When you enter the elevator, you need to know, or you'd be good to know where the panel is. But sometimes that panel is marked only with Braille, and only a fraction of people who are blind can read Braille. So then you're dependent on the help of another. In many cases with current elevators, that panel is flat, much like an iPhone or an Android screen. And without an interface that's suitable for use by people who are blind, you're in trouble, and then dependent on someone else for help. What we demonstrated yesterday was BlindSquare's ability of interfacing with KONE, K-O-N-E elevators. They're the top 3 elevator manufacturers globally. And with a simple voice command, with BlindSquare, you can say elevator 2. And whether it's 2 or 22 or 222, it would indicate the floor. And the elevator is just the voice command indicating I'm giving a command to the elevator. The result of which is you hear a tone when the elevator that you've called arrives. You enter the elevator, it senses your presence. The elevator will have pre-selected floor number 2 in this example. And when the elevator arrives at floor 2, the door opens and you're notified that this is your disembark point. all simply with voice controls and without the need of needing to know the technology behind it. You just need to know where you're going to go, and we take care of the tough part.
So is the company going to retrofit existing elevators, or it's only for new elevators that have microphones and other infrastructure available to it?
So the company of reference that we're working with now is called Kone, K-O-N-E, and the intention is to both retrofit existing elevator locations as well as new. It's a really good question, because if it's only things that are going forward, it still leaves the market unsatisfied or the issue unmet. And our intention with Kone is to correct that.
I think one of the great challenges is the economics of retrofitting, the economics of buildings complying with this. And in many cases, you have to have regulations that stipulate this. Is that an aspect that you're working on in terms of the advocacy community to make sure that people and businesses are amenable to the type of retrofitting, not only for elevators, but for indoor GPS installation?
We don't work directly with the end organizations. So we don't work with the malls, we don't work with the real estate companies responsible for the high towers, but we certainly work a lot with organizations in support of persons who are blind, either advocacy organizations or national organizations such as Canadian National Institute for the Blind. I offer that because I'm Canadian. Many of the organizations in the US, AFB, NFB, Blind Foundation in New Zealand, RNIB in the UK, Vision Australia in Australia, of course, and others.
Well, that begs the next question, which is whether this technology falls under the Americans with Disability Act and the requirement to accommodate people with disabilities, or whether that is still being pursued.
That's not it's an awareness on our part, it's not a concern on our part, because ultimately the choice of am I going to move from point A to B with information to support my travel is the individual's choice. AODA would, ADA, I'm using Canadian terms here, ADA would concern itself with standards for compliance and what the organization should do. We're simply there to backfill. When the individual's ready, we're there and continue their journey, whether it's in a building or whether it's in their life.
So what is your vision for BlindSquare 5 years from now?
More and better, of course. The journey indoors is a great and wonderful frontier, and we're working in support of seeing that expand rapidly. We've mastered the travel for persons outdoors, and now we want that journey to continue. I want that journey to continue beyond beacons, and ultimately to make the product useful for everyone, and easy enough that you can use it with your eyes closed.
So it's currently an iOS product. What are your plans, and when will you port it to Android?
Android is an interesting question, and we do have hundreds and hundreds of hours in support of development for Android. But here's a common truth, that in North America, the audience of our community is on the Apple platform. The Apple platform is more stable and more viable for use, but there's a profile of people that use Android. Some of it is economics, some of it is simply preference. We either prefer Android or we don't prefer Apple, and there's a subtle difference there. Or there's a community that is led by people who are technically competent, that can deal with the variances of what the Android definition means. Where for us on the Apple platform, Apple is pretty much Apple is Apple. When you say an Apple device does a certain thing, you can expect that. With Android, that's not true. We have a commitment to bring an Android product to market, and it's not to support anything more than the people who are not on the Apple platform because of economics.
Thank you so much. This has been an extraordinarily interesting and illuminating conversation. We wish you the best of luck, and we'll be following your progress.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate the term illuminating, because it's a term that we use as well. As someone enters an environment that would otherwise be information dark, the nature of blindness, of course, we improve that by illuminating with information. And thank you for the opportunity.